Okay, so in today's session, we're going to look at the other part of BI Dynamics Wizard, which is called Manage Model. So this is where you'll actually edit the fact tables that we were talking about in the previous step. Now, yesterday we talked about dimensions, of course, that we have it here. Now we're talking about facts. So those are the tables where the actual numbers are. And when I say numbers, I mean the source for this table is a transactional table. Okay, so this is where all the documents are, as opposed to in dimension, which are massive tables that you only have information about the customers or items on and so on. Okay, so let's just go into Manage Model. Okay, this could take a couple of seconds. So in this, this screen will look familiar to you because it's essentially the same as it was in Manage Dimension, but with one additional differentiator on this side, already on the first page. So it still says cubes, but these are actually just a model. So the area, modules. The area of the business module that we would like to bundle together. So it's sales, it's receivables, purchase, payables, inventory, GL analysis. You don't have to worry about common measures for now. This is just for helping us out when creating Power BI reports, and we'll also go into that later in the training. Now, if you focus on this 6 business modules, this is the same as you have selected within the license. So if we go back for just 1 second on the deploy, and if we go to modules, this is consistent with what we selected here. If we would select more modules, so jobs or manufacturing or service management, that would show up in the managed model, and it would be available for us to edit it. Okay. So what we'll do now is just slowly go into one of the modules. So let's take sales because it is the most intuitive and easy to understand. Now, the same thing as we did with dimensions. I'll guide you through the first few steps, okay, and then we'll come back and take a look at everything into more details. Like I said, the scripts. Excuse me. So as apart from dimension scripts that I were talking about, we also have, of course, the fact scripts that are, again, integrated within the, wrong instance. So if we go to fact, so we'll see the same story here, and this should be, the same thing that you will see in Wizard, you should be able to see here. Now, again, if we go to sales, so these are called facts, okay? These are cubes, so bundles of different, tables that are bundled together into one business area, and these are called facts. And you can see we have 10, 11 facts here, and this is consistent in what we have in the Explorer as well. So let's look at the sales value item. Now, don't get confused with all of this. We'll handle the content side of things on later sessions. In this particular session, we'll only look from a technical perspective like we did on the dimension. Now, the options here are essentially the same as we had on the dimensions. You can save, you can generate, you can add a new cube or a package here, and you can add a new fact table. And you can also update the same way as we have done on Update Now with dimensions. So this is the same functionality only for transactional tables. Now, going into this, let's edit the fact and let's see what we have. So this specific fact is orientated on the sales values of the item. Of course, in sales you can sell many things. You can sell an item, or you can sell it can be a financial invoice, okay, so financial transaction, or it can be a service. So that comes under a different fact. Why? Because the lead table from where we get the information is different. In sales, we have, so when we try to sell the items, that's all stored in value entry. And if we want to say, if we want to have a financial invoice, that is stored in sales invoice line or sales invoice header. Okay. Okay, let's go back to the items. So you can see here, this is quite a bit more complex than it was on Dimension. And because this part of the solution is indeed more complex than it was with Dimensions, that's why we also started with Dimensions. So this part will be easier to understand. Okay, the lead table again is value entry. Then we have sales invoice line, credit memo. So we get some of the information from all of these tables here. Now the first time you can see here, we also included tables that are not part of schema stage, but they were pre-built like Dimension. So Dimension is built before the fact table. Okay, so a Dimension table is included here, and also a help table the help table is included here. And this particular table is help currency, and you'll see why did we include it later on. Okay, let's focus on the value entry first. So this will be really familiar, the same functionality as it was on Dimension, the same screen you can see here. Going to next screen, you'll see more of the same. So you have a bunch of fields that are selected here from all of these tables. And you can already see some differences here. The main difference is this object type. Okay, so here's the table name and the name of the field. Okay, and there's additional column here which says object type. Now, of course, in Dimensions, we don't only have, but majority of the facts is a text field or a code or something similar. That will always translate to Dimension. One simple reason. So if it's a text field, it's not a number, right? It cannot be a measure. Now, this is in general terms. There could be exception to this rule, but we'll deal with that later. So if you take a look at the field type, so we have code, decimal, integer, and so on. And if you know a little bit of SQL, you know the code, of course, will be a dimension. And then when we have a number, decimal, that is going to be a measure, okay? And the same, so we kind of decide this for you. You always have an option to change this as necessary, but usually it's not necessary to do so. This is just, I'm mentioning this so just so you know that you have an option to do so. One additional thing that is here, you can see a lot of custom SQL expression over here. We talked about this in Dimension, and let's have a look at how do we transform a measure or a field already in this part of the project. So on this particular field, which is cost amount actual, from value entry table. So what we do here is we take a value entry expected cost, and then we check if this is 0. So if this is 0, also the cost amount actual, if this is 0, we'll have a cost amount actual with the pre-sign of minus. So this is all Navision logic here, and it makes sense when you look at it that way. Let's have a look at another example. So invoice quantity. Okay, another opposite sign here. Okay, the same measure, but the opposite sign. So why do we use an opposite sign here? A lot of measures in Navision are actually go into negative numbers. Okay, invoice quantity, when you post an invoice, the invoice quantity will be -1, -2 if you invoice 1 item or 2 items. Okay. Then if you, and this is absolutely correct in Navision terms, okay? But when you look at the reports, okay, if we would still have minus, it wouldn't make sense. Then we would have a chart that will go into the negative numbers, okay? And that's why we, for some measures, we introduce a negative sign here. So you can see the same. Okay, so we're already using this functionality, which wasn't used on Dimension, and yeah, that's the other thing that I've mentioned is Dimension or measure. So we decide what it is. Okay. Apart from that, we have the where condition that we already saw. So here it makes sense because the value entry table in Navision has data from other business modules as well. So it has purchase, it has sales, and it has inventory as well. So we need to put a where clause here, where item ledger entry type from value entry will be 1, which means it is sales. Okay, this is an option field, and 1 means sales. So already at the start of it, we'll only get the data from value entry, which is sales. Okay, you have the same preview as you had before, but you have one additional thing, which is called custom fields. Okay, so what do we do here? And I'll show you. Let's have a look at one of the custom fields. Field to customer. Okay. So as you have seen on the previous step, we used many tables on this model. So we used value entry, we used sales invoice header, sales credit memo header, and so on. And all of these tables can contain a bill to customer number, so the information in that field. Now, what we did here is, just in case the customer doesn't have a bill to customer number on the value entry table, okay, but it has it in sales invoice header or sales credit memo. So we did a coalesce clause here, which will just return the bill to customer number, the first one that it finds. Okay, if it will be from sales invoice header, it will return it from here. Otherwise, it will look at other fields as well. Okay, so this is a custom field. Let's see if we have any other example here. Yeah, this one, for instance. So item number to join. You don't need to know the specific right now, the content of it, but everything we do here is basically to create a consistency of data going into the reports, and also gives us some flexibility in how we want to handle fields going on. In addition to what we have here with custom SQL expression, we can also create a custom field going forward. Okay, good. Any questions so far?
I have a question. Okay. So what is the basic difference between this custom field and in the selected fields you also have custom expressions, right? So logically they both are same, right?
That's a very good question, and I was kind of hoping that someone would ask this. Otherwise, I would tell you just now. Yes, they're basically the same. That is true, but when we include in the sell to customer, right? We include many of these fields that are here. Okay, if we go to sell to customer here, okay, we would see that, sell to customer, okay, that we will have to edit each field that is selected, right? So, but what we do here is just join every one of the fields that is, let me do this, bill to customer, okay, so we have 4 fields here. So what we do here is not show every one of them because it doesn't make sense. But instead of that, we kind of join it into one field because it's the same essential information. It's the bill to customer, right? So I hope that answers your question.
Not 100%, but I think it's okay. I mean, we can go ahead.
Okay, so just to elaborate a little bit, no problem. Again, if we take a look at things, the customer, so this is within our model. So the model is built in a way that we should cover most of the customers, right? In theory, we could just take bill to customer or source number, right, which is where the information is in value entry. We could just take this field and take and treat it as a bill to customer. But it is not always the case. That information can also come from many other tables that are built into this into this fact. Okay, so that's why we rather do a coalesce here, and to take that information from any of these fields, because it is the same information, rather than actually have separate fields or separate dimension from each table. It will make more sense when I go to next screen, maybe, when you'll see how we build dimensions. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Good. So we have everything selected. We have our custom fields, and you can also see a nice statistics here. So total fields selected, 52, 12 measures, and 40 dimensions. Okay, let's go next. So now it becomes a little bit more complex than it was before. And you saw yesterday that we already have a separate manage dimensions section, right? But here again, you will see manage dimension, this time from fact, and I'll tell you why that is. Depending how you want the dimension to be treated in fact, okay, how do you want it to behave, there are different types of dimension, and also the source of the dimension can come from different, let's say, they're all from table, of course, but different kind of tables. I'll explain, don't worry. So the first type of dimension is from field, and we'll take a look at a example of that. So you will see not many of them are from field. To be specific, only date comes from field, which means that the dimension is built directly from a specific field. So we take a field, and if we selected it here as a dimension, okay, I just put the posting date here. Okay, posting date as a dimension. So we see it here. Focus on the posting date, okay? What I will do now is just deselect that measure. That dimension, and we'll have it here. Now, I've already told you that the date is a really complex dimension that gets built first. Okay, and here we need to create even though we already have a dimension, right? Dimension by itself needs to be linked to the fact tables, so to the transactional table. Date dimension by itself only contains dates, calendar dates and everything else that I've shown you in the previous meetings. Now we need to link that or connect that dimension to the fact tables, to the actual documents, okay? And when we select a date in the reports, okay, I'll just do this really quickly. Actually, I create a new one. We'll choose an existing connection. This one. Okay, we'll go again to sales values. So we'll go over this slowly because it's a little bit more complex. Again, net sales. We'll add and this time we will add a date. Okay, and what we'll also do is add a document dimension. Okay, right, or tabular. Good. So we have some information here, right? Sales invoice, and let's take a look at credit memos because there are not so many documents here. Okay. we have 4 documents, okay? This one was posted in January 2020. Okay, we have a demo database. Then it was posted. It was posted then. Even if it's in the future, don't worry about it. So it was posted in January 2020. But we need to. So we know this from the posting date on the dimension, right? And this is okay. And we have net sales for that specific item. But if we want to analyze everything by date, we need to connect that fact, those documents, all the documents that we are looking at here, right? All the documents, we need to connect that posting date to our date dimension. So why do we do that? Because, like I said, date the most important thing here. And if I remove, sorry, I'll just do a different kind of. Now we divided everything. Now we divided everything into the documents, and I can also focus on the documents a little bit now. Just a little bit of background. Everything that we do in BI for Dynamics is based on the lower granularity, which is a little bit weird at first, because when you look at Excel reports, right, you will go from the highest hierarchy, so a year, you will go to month, and then you will go to date, and so on. Okay, you go from up to down. But how we actually do things in BI for Dynamics, we have documents, and this is the basis for everything here. We take each individual document, have the information from there, and then we sum numbers up by different attributes that are on this document. So by date, by customer, by item, and so on. So that's why we can get a summarized value of all the documents that were posted on a specific date. Okay, this is a summarized value. Now, if we go further here, we will break things down by the document. So this is individual documents value. And of course, if we go back, this is the summarized value. So we need to have the lowest granularity possible. We need to take into account each particular document in order to summarize it later on by dimensions. Okay. And by saying that, okay, we need to tie each document which we get from value entry table to a dimension. In this case, it is date. So we know on which date exactly it was posted, and we can report on them. Like I said, we take the posting date from value entry. So we know which document is it posted, which document is posted when on each day. Now we decide on the dimension name, okay? And we'll not call it a posting date, but we'll just call it a date, okay? Because all of the dates being there will be essentially a posting date. Now, if we have some other dates, we'll rename it accordingly, but this will simply show up as date in the reports. So value entry posting date, okay? You'll see a date dimension in the reports, and that's it. Then you can summarize all the documents by date. And this is a simple, what it's called, it's a simple dimension which comes from field, okay? From field. So no transformation here whatsoever. This is, just posting date, posing as date dimension. Since we just selected the posting date in the previous step, okay, here is everything that we have selected, but we need to actually add it to the project. So you have an add button here, and the date will show up here. So these are selected dimension. If it's not under selected dimension, it will not show in the project. Okay, good. Going forward. Now, there are other types of dimension, and when I say type of dimensions, our code generator is treating them a little bit differently, okay? So from multiple tables, you'll rarely see that. I think one example is in GL, otherwise, nothing much here. We'll just skip that for now. The important thing here is from related table. Now, remember when we have built a model here in select source tables, we have selected a bunch of tables, okay? But these are mostly transactional tables, not mostly, but all of them besides date and currency, so transactional tables. Okay, so how do we build dimensions from transactional tables? So one thing is to select a specific field here from the tables that we have selected. Okay, so this is one thing, indicated as a dimension, like VAT business posting group. So it will be a dimension, and then you can select it. But remember that we have metadata, so we actually know which tables are connected between each other as in whole Navision, not only in the tables that we have selected so far. So even though we haven't selected a specific table to form dimension out of it, from metadata, we get the related tables. So all of these tables, related table name, all of these tables is somehow connected. All of them are somehow connected to one of the tables that we have selected in the model. Okay, so even though you haven't selected it before, you can still select everything from here. Now, you know, job, for instance, but what we'll do is just select customer. No, we'll not select a customer. We'll select an item for now. Actually deselect, so we'll move it to this side and you'll see what we're talking about. Now, we already created a item dimension, okay, on the previous step in manage dimension. So item dimension is already created. We just need to connect to it. Now, we have both options here. If we want to create a new instance, right, like inventory posting group, we would say new, okay? And on this side, it will actually show us from metadata again, how the inventory posting group code is connected to the value entry table, so to the transactional table, so inventory posting group, okay? And then we can just add a dimension and it will show up here, inventory posting group. Simple as that. Now, what we want to do here, specifically with item, and we didn't have inventory posting group dimension available. So that's why we selected a new one, and we have just added it and check if the relation is okay. So inventory posting group code to inventory post group, and that's it. So we get that information from metadata. Again, as I've told you on dimension side, you need to be careful about these relations. If the relation is not okay, because you might have errors in metadata, the join will not form properly and you will have duplicate entries in the fact tables. We'll also get to that a little bit later. So you have to be careful about the dimension and fact relation. So we have a add button here and that's it, okay? Now, like I said, it could be a new dimension. So we can create it. If we didn't create a dimension before, in the manage dimension section, we can create it from here. Now, for the item, which we already created, we just need to link it to the existing dimension. And that's why we select a existing instance, existing dimension, okay? And select, then you'll have a drop-down menu here. And we'll just search through the list of available dimension. We'll go to item. Okay, and now we see that, you know, this is in red. Why is this in red? If, you know, this is as a general rule in BF Dynamics, if you have a red square, when you hover over it, you will have a message to show you what the issue is. So relation between dimension and fact is missing. And when I switch that from something else to something else, in this case item and so on, this one disappeared. Okay, so we need to form this relation. Okay, if we would use a existing dimension, we need to form this relation, and we will just add a condition. And how do we link this one to each other? So we will use item number, and in this particular fact, we will use item number from. So we'll add that dimension, and once we get the condition, add the condition, the relation here, up and running, and we know it's okay, we just click add. Okay, so this is adding a dimension from the related table. Again, you don't need to select all the tables that you will use in the project, because if you have built data warehouse before, you know that at first you need to select all the tables that you will use. With BI4 Dynamics, you select the base tables or the base tables, whichever there are, and the rest of them you can add through the user interface. So it makes it even easier for you. Let's say you build a model and you use a transactional tables here, because the transactional table, you will use transactional tables to build a fact, right? And then you add dimensions through the tables that are related with metadata. Okay, and every one of this table is related with metadata, so you can add any of these dimensions. Some of those dimensions were already added in the previous step, so we will not use a new dimension, but we'll use a existing dimension. So instead of looking at what we have in the application, let's look at the output first. So this was suggestions from one of the guys here that we should maybe take a look at that first. So the three scripts that I was talking about yesterday already with dimensions, right? The output that Wizard generates, okay, is those three scripts. Yeah. Okay, so we'll have a look at the load procedure. Now we'll take a simple example here, the GL transaction. Of course, so we'll take everything from stage GL entry, because this is the lead table for the GL, so finance transactions. Okay, so it will only be one table. The one additional table that is attached to the model here is help currency, which is not important at this point. So GL entry. You have a GL entry table in the vision, which contains finance data. Then we transfer everything to stage tables, GL entry, right? Still raw data, okay? And then we build a data warehouse out of it. And what is data warehouse is that you need to connect those transactional numbers with a dimension. So you need to be able to analyze that numbers with dimensions. And how we do that is with left outer joins. Okay. So just any of you just stop me, okay, if this becomes unclear. Again, we'll take a look at the date because it's the most simple example. So that GL entry table will connect it with the left outer join to dimension date, okay, using one field from the transactional table and one field from dimension table. Now, from dimension table, we will use a date field. This is table, and this is field, okay? This is a primary key. And then on the GL entry posting date, this field is a foreign key, and we'll join those two together with left outer join. Okay, so this is the output, and we'll try to recreate this in BI4 Dynamics right now. Good, let's go to GL analysis, GL transactions. Okay, added the fact. We'll see same exact thing here. We added to the model stage GL entry and help currency. Now, if I go to output again, okay, we will select some fields from GL entry and help currency. So left outer join help currency, it's the same thing that you're seeing it right here, right? Help currency is related to GL entry with the left outer join with these conditions. Okay, good. So let's continue. Now we'll only focus on one table, GL entry. We'll go next, and then the same thing as we did before. We selected fields. Some of them will be dimensions. Some of them will be measures. Okay, debit amount, credit amount, VAT amount. So the amount, which is field type decimal, those will be measures. The rest of them will be somehow connected. We select them so we can create a link to the dimensions. Okay, let's go next. Now we're at the same exact screen as we were before. Okay, let's not go through this again. We'll focus on that later. Now, I'll simplify things. The selected dimensions on the right side, okay, they are already selected. This one will be added to the project. This is the one that you will see in Excel. Okay, the ones that are available here, they're available for you to add them if necessary. Okay, no matter what it is, what the menu says up there, it's all still available dimensions to be added to the project where the selected dimensions already are on the right side. Okay, so once we select all the dimensions, okay, and we need to select them carefully so we can get the condition right, the relation, right? So we need to select that relation carefully so we will have a one-to-one relation. Okay, so it will be a distinct relation. One date will always equal to only one date. So the 1st of January 2021 will always equal 1st of January 2021. That will be always true, and then we will have a nice, correctly built data warehouse. So one-to-one relation, remember that. Also, the same is true for item. You know, one item number will always equal to one item number in the item table, okay, that we had on the other side. So you need to be careful about that. Okay, so good. So once we select the dimensions, we have a question mark here or exclamation point here that will tell us what the relation is. We can also see it here, right? Business unit code is connected to business unit code. Okay, this is just for your information. And this is the same text that you will see here before you select the dimension. Okay, never mind. Select the dimension. These are the ones that will be attached to the project. Everything here is work in progress on the left side. Good. Okay, let's go next. And we'll talk a little bit about measures. So you know from the from this screen already that we selected some of the dimensions, measures, amount, VAT amount, and so on. So if I go to manage measures, they will show up here. Now we have 3 types of different measures. As an end consequence, in Excel, you won't be able to differentiate between the 3 types. They will all show as a measure. If we go to GL analysis here, GL transactions, sorry, they will all come out as equals. You will not be able to see which measure is which one. Okay, but there are some differences between them in terms how they are created. Now, base measures, those are the measures that come directly from Navision, and we do no transformations on them. It is simple. Table name, GL entry. The field name would be amount. This will translate in the reports to be seen as GL net change. Okay, and if we look at the reports, you will see here GL net change. You will also see GL VAT amount, GL credit amount, and GL debit amount. Those are all base measures. So those four. So no transformation here. We take a field, we put it in the project, and that's it. So this is called a base measure. We have some other options here, but we'll go through that later. The next type of measures are data warehouse measures. This means that a measure is built on the data warehouse. It doesn't come directly from Navision, from stage tables, but we create it on the data warehouse. And when I say data warehouse, I mean in SQL, on the SQL tables here. So on the fact tables that we're on right now. So fact tables, if I look at fact GL transaction, actually, let's have a look at here. Okay. So here are the fields on in the script. Okay, those are the ones that we have seen right now. Right, these four, this come directly from Navision. And you see there's no transformation here. It just says if it's a 0, it will return a null amount. So this is just an exception. So you'll have a nicer reports. Okay. So if it's 0, we do, this is added automatically by the code, but it's in essence, it's still just a simple field. Okay. Now we transition to the data warehouse measures. And these measures, this is something that we calculate on the data warehouse. In our case, we have the same, we have the base, we'll calculate it, we will calculate something from the measures that we already have. And to repeat, we already have the base measures like GL net change. Okay, this is GL entry amount. So again, GL entry amount. Now, on the data warehouse measures, we will calculate a GL net change ACY. ACY stands for additional currency. Now, this is just an example. So we take and I'll open the custom SQL expression. So this is simple. We will take a GL entry amount, which is a base measure or just a field on the table, and we will multiply it with the currency factor. And this will effectively create a new measure with these properties. And this will be a GL entry amount shown in additional currency. Now, additional currency will be the one that we have selected in the first meeting when we selected the companies. Okay, when we selected the additional measure, this will be taken into account and we will create a new measure. So to recap, a data warehouse measure is something that we create out of base measure and calculate it on the data warehouse. So that's why it's data warehouse measure. Okay, if I show you how this translates to the SQL code, GL net change ACY, additional currency, is GL entry amount times currency factor. Okay, the same thing that we saw here. It's just a user interface that will then translate everything to the SQL code. This is the DAX measure. So this might be placed, for you at least, in the wrong section. But let me tell you what DAX is. DAX is a language that you use on analysis database, okay? And you calculate a new measure on analysis database. But in BF Dynamics, we all bundle it together, even though technically speaking, it's not on data warehouse. So it's not on the database engine right here, but it's calculated on the analysis server. Okay. But like I told you from the beginning, we don't differentiate in reports between different measures. They will all come out the same way. The end customer will not see a difference. Where is it calculated? Is it the base measure, or is it a measure calculated on data warehouse, or is it calculated on the analysis database? Okay, So that's why we have this section here to bundle all the measures together in one screen. Okay, I'll just go through this again once more. So creating a fact table, it will contain a transactional table. In our case, it is the GL entry. Now, we don't need to add the dimension tables, which we will need to analyze the numbers into the model. But we BI for Dynamics application allows it to add it within this section. Okay, between the in the next sections. So only keep the transactional tables here. Going next, you select the fields, the potential dimensions and potential measures. Okay. Going next, you will select all the dimensions that need to be attached to this fact. Again, if we look at the at the script, so those are the dimension attached. Okay. And then on the next step, you will define a measure. So base measures, data warehouse measures, and DAX measures. This is measures coming from Navision directly. These are the measures that are calculated on the data warehouse, and these are the measures that are calculated in DAX language on analysis database. And when you click next, you're done. You have effectively built a new fact table. How will this show up in Excel? It will show up as a separate measure group, GL transaction, okay? And it will contain all the measures that we have defined so far. Not only the base measures, but also data warehouse measures and DAX measures. Okay, if I click through them, number of GL entries, okay. And because we have added some dimensions, it will also work with dimension like date. Okay, so we'll have these entries available, month, day, and so on. Now we need to go into specifics because this is a training and we'll just need to get this, we'll need to get the specific done, so you'll need to understand this. Okay, good. So this one I already explained, add a transactional table here. Next one, no big deal, the same as with dimensions, select the fields that you want to use. Good. And now we're again at this step when it becomes interesting. Okay, let's start over. So various types of dimensions, okay? And again, as a result, they will come in as dimensions. So like you see here, buy from vendor, close period, company, date, global dimensions, and so on. You will not be able to differentiate between each other, even though they are treated differently in BI for Dynamics. And when I say differently, they're treated differently in a way we define them and how the output is on the SQL in the SQL code. Now, most of you won't even have to look at SQL code. You just need to know how to add them to the project. Okay. Yeah. So one type of dimension is from field that will come directly from the field. The other types from multiple table. This is rarely used. Another type is from related table, where we know from metadata one of those table is, let's say, tax area is already connected with the GL entry table. So GL entry, remember, that's the lead transactional tables that we use on this fact. Okay, we can use those, even though we haven't added them to the model. Okay, we still know they are connected. We still know we can use them, and you have an option to use them here. Okay, by adding them. Then we have two more, custom it's exactly what it says. It's custom, so you can pretty much do whatever you want here, but we'll do that a little bit later. And then the last part is global dimensions. Now, remember when we have defined the global dimension when we selected the companies, right? These are the global dimensions. So each transactional table, and let me go into stage here. Sorry. Yeah, stage. So this is value entry, but let's select everything from GL entry. From stage EL entry. Okay. So there will be a field here. Sorry. Where is it? Documented. I think it's okay. So we have a field here that will tie a global dimension. Okay, and this is dimension set ID that will tie it to the global dimension here. Now you don't need to know the specific and the background. Here in the customize section, you only need to know which table do we want to use to get those global dimensions. So manage dimensions, global dimensions, we will get it from GL entry. Now, why am I saying this? Because in case we have more tables like we have here, okay, because we have more tables here, if I go to manage dimensions, this list becomes longer. We just need to decide where do we want those global dimensions coming from. In almost all of the cases, 99.9%, it will be from the lead table that we select, value entry, okay? If you will, during your course at BF Dynamics, you will build a new fact, which customer will request. It could happen that you can have a global dimension coming from a different table. So you just need to select where do you want global dimensions to come from. Value entry, the lead table, and that's it. Okay. Again, these are the base measures. These are the measures. Now we're in sales. So this is a little bit more complicated than it was in GL. So we're adding layers to it. Okay, we have again base measures, many of them, more of them as in GL. We have data warehouse measures, again, and DAX measures. There are quite a few of them. Okay, good. That's it. Now we'll go through it again to show you all the other options that we have. Okay, we'll skip that. Skip that as well. Custom fields, we already talked about this. Now, global dimensions are, I think, clear for now, but we'll go into that when we build a new fact. And I just wanted to show you the options are, besides from actually defining the measures. Okay, so getting the base measure and changing the names in a way so we can have a friendly name on the reports, because this is the name it will show on the reports. We have some other options as well. And let me show you. So we have show 0 as null. So every one of this, this is something that will show up that you as a consultant, you only need to know that this is an option available here, but this will again translate to SQL code, okay, which the generator takes care of. So you don't need to worry about that. Then we have visible or not. So the same thing as with dimensions. Why do we want something not to be visible if we define it? Well, maybe because we will define this measure, but we will only use it as a base for another measure. Okay, so that's why that's that measure will not be visible. Only the end measure would be visible here. Okay, so you have that option here. You can still create it on the data warehouse, but it will not show up. Then we have display folders. We haven't talked about this before, so let me show you what display folders are. Again, we're GL transactions, and of course we have all the measures here, but sometimes we have measures that are somehow different in a way. And let's say a good example of this would be a measures that are of additional currency. So this is GL net change in additional currency, which is a different currency than the base measure, right? GL net change, and then additional currency. That's why we'd like to put it into the display folder, additional currency. We actually bundle together the measure with the same, with the aim to get them a little bit more, the reports will be a little bit more easier on the eye, and you will have them bundled together in a folder here. So if I open up this one, you will see ACY measures over here because we have put them in display folders. Again, this is something that is only be visible on the reports. Okay, and if we can add a new display folder, we can use existing ones and so on. Okay, this is the display folders. That's it. So the last thing about the measures that I wanted to talk about in this hour, after this we'll take a little break, is the extended measures. Now, it doesn't matter which measure it is here, you can always extend it. And what does it mean? It means that you will extend its functionality in some way. To be really concrete here, so if we take a look at GL net change, this is a base measure, and we will extend it. Okay. I can press extend here again. It will show up here. Okay, just so you know, you can extend a single measure many times. But we have a drop-down menu here, and if this letters doesn't tell you much, let me tell you what they mean. So this is year to date. This is period over period. This is year over year. This is last periods. These are rolling measures. This is month to date, week to date, week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, and quarter to date. Okay. Now, these are called a time intelligence measure. You may have stumbled upon time intelligence, people talking about time intelligence when you're building a Power BI reports. Everybody's talking about time intelligence. And that's why coming back to date dimension, which is, like I said, the most important dimension in EBA for Dynamics, based on that, you can have more time intelligence measure. And what does it actually mean? Let's see in the report. Now we'll take the last periods, which is the easiest to understand, and we'll just take one measure here, and it will be a GL net change. We will not use a date, okay, for now, but we will add a last period. We'll take a look at last period again, display folder. It will come in display folder, last periods. And that's pretty simple. So what do we do on last periods? Based on the date that is currently selected, we will calculate each measure many times, but using a different, let's say, filter. So this will be GL net change minus 1 month, minus 2 months, minus 3 months. Now you're asking yourself, why nothing is showing up here? This is because this is linked to date dimension. So the date that you have defined in the report will be the base for this calculations. So whatever month you choose here, the last period will always show you that the previous month of the selected month. So that's why I will add a date dimension again. And immediately when I go to the month level, okay, so this is GL. Okay, so we have no data here. I will rather go to the sales here. I already have it somewhere. This is sales data. Let's just delete this. Will not use this one, but the same concept will be true for net sales. Okay, last periods. Net sales minus 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month. Okay, nothing showing up, but when we defined the date and actually the month, okay, it will show up. So what are we looking at right now? January 2020, we have a net sales of this amount. Okay, net sales minus 1 month will be the previous month, which is December 2021. Okay, and then we just go down the line. Of course, in February, we don't have any data on February, but in net sales minus 1 month, it will be the January net sales, and minus 2 months will be the December sales. Okay, so these measures are called time intelligence measures, and they're really seek after from the customer side. So this is really important. Now this is simple, right? It's last period. So let's see what else we have here. What do we have available? Again, I'll take outside everything that we have here. I'll leave the date dimension in. I will put the net sales. Again, we only have data for 2 months here. And then we'll look at a different kind of time intelligence. Not less periods, but maybe, yeah, I don't have much data here. I will probably have to switch to another instance, but just thinking of what we can do here. Yeah, month over month maybe, because we have data on monthly level. I'll find on the next session, I'll find a nice set of data and I'll show this again. Again, we'll go into, so what do we have here? Previous periods, we have last periods. Maybe year over year or year to date. That will be a good one. Net sales year to date. Okay, let's use this one. Okay. So again, not the best representative, but this is actually a so this will actually be a cumulative of what we have sold so far. Yeah, not the best data. I'll find the data on the next session. So let's leave this for now. Any of you have a question? Jaka, you have a question or a suggestion probably?
Maybe take month to date.
Yeah, month to date, that would be wise. I'll just put this inside. We'll have the same number. But if you're true, if you're correct, if we extend that to the daily level, you will have some data. Okay, good. Okay, month to date, the same as year to date. This is the cumulative net sales in this case for daily level. Okay, if we get only so here in net sales, we'll see how much we sold on each particular day. So January 6, 71,000, January 9, 30,000. But here on the month to date, you will see that up to the 8th of January, we have sold 71,000, the same thing as this for the 6th. There were no sales on the 7th and the 8th. So this will be a sum up to this date. And then on the 9th, we already sold 30,000 and the number will go up and will stay up, because we didn't sell anything through the 15th of January, then it will go up again. Okay, so these are all time intelligence measures. different types. So month to date, year to date, year over year, and so on. I'll find a better set of data so I can show you that.